Hi, I'm sharing this, the modern day slavery statement by Amazon, and it is, I'll leave you the link to this statement, and it is a very important step forward on on that this corporation Amazon has made. And I joined Amazon when I discovered that they had decided to pay their workers above the minimum wage of $9 an hour, as the USA and other nations were paying, and upped it to $15 an hour. That is the minimum wage that they pay, which I feel was a step forward. And so yeah, I joined Amazon because of their commitment to addressing slavery, bonded workers and sweatshop workers. Okay, that I felt, yeah, I will support these. And actually Amazon do provide a very important service, especially to disabled people and elderly people, people with no transport who can't afford to go travelling the miles and miles to these industrial retail estates, units that are set up usually outside of their town or cities. People living in remote locations are able to benefit, and so Amazon is providing a service to people, and a lot of the products that they're providing, people would have a great difficulty locating in their, even in these industrial units. So Amazon is providing a very good service, and it is providing a well paid employment to people, and so better paid than a lot of corporations are presently providing. So in that sense, I feel, yeah, we should support the companies that are trying at least to address the problems, the issues. And it is also beholden upon the members of Amazon to inform Amazon if at any point we are concerned or have suspicions that certain products being sold on their site might be the product of slavery, which recently I've had to do after a couple of items were I'd ordered for a friend who'd seen them, and wanted to buy these items as a present for somebody, and I bought them, and it was only afterwards when I was looking and looking at the price, which was really very, very cheap for what these items are, that I've since contacted Amazon to express my concerns about these items, like, are they the produce of slave labour or bonded labour or sweatshop labour, you see, because I've recently made a video about Deborah and Barak, these biblical characters, and again, you know, we do need to thank the people of Judaic faith for the fact that they've that they've recorded their history, and it is there for us to continue to learn from to this very day. But one of the key points I make in that video about, well, the song of Deborah and Barak, which gives an account of a battle against basically a mercenary army that was intent on looting and raping whole communities simply because they could, operating on the law of might equals right to do as thy will. You know, I've got a really strong army, you're all really defenceless, so I'm just going to barge in and take what I like and have a bit of fun, and you know, and then I'll toddle off with all my goods to take them and share them among my friends, you see. And one of the points that I've raised in that video is the fact that the people, Deborah and Barak, who stood against this army of tyrants and actually defeated them, were very different characters. than the leader of the army and his mother, you know, in the sense that his mother was quite happy to receive gifts that were attained through abuse and murder and torture of people. Okay, she was happy. She didn't care. She didn't care. Oh yeah, give that to me. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. She doesn't care, you see. Whereas Deborah, if somebody had given her such a gift, she would be disgusted. She wouldn't want such a gift. Like, no, I don't want gifts that have been attained through abuse and murder and torture of people. And it is torture to force people into slave labour. It is torture to force people into bondage. And, you know, we do have a duty, like I say, to be vigilant. And what's going on in this world today is that people are buying these very, very cheap products that are being made through human suffering and even profiting from them. So, you know, they'll buy wholesale from a nation with a very poor human rights record that are known to employ bonded and slave and sweatshop workforces, paying them less than a living wage. And then once in this country, those people will sell those products for a very much higher price, making huge, huge profits. Because the items they're buying them for pennies and they're selling them for tens of pounds, you see. So, you know, the exploitation is being passed on and on and on. And yet the people are free, apparently, to only look at the situation in terms of money. Well, I bought this for 50p and I'm selling it for 12 quid and I'm paying a couple of quid tax on that. Okay? And meanwhile I'm making like £9.50 profit. But they aren't at all concerned. There seems to be no power on this earth that is prepared to regulate like that and say, well, no, actually, how are you selling this product for pennies? And don't you realise, you know, these people are selling it for pounds. Where's your cut? Why aren't you paying your workers a decent wage? Why aren't you paying more for your product? Oh, well, then we wouldn't be able to sell as much. Well, you know, maybe you shouldn't be selling that much. Why are these people being robbed of their time, their energy, their rights? And what for? To live in absolute poverty, to provide these actually unnecessary, trivial things to the rest of the world. As we can see in Britain, we used to have shoe factories, for example, and clothes factories in Britain making clothes and shoes, paying workers a living wage. The workers had unions. They had workers' rights. They had rights to pension, rights to retirement, rights to sick pay. All those factories have closed down because it's actually easier and cheaper to order the stuff from, say, India or China or somewhere and then open up a shop and sell it here. And people going, oh yeah, yeah, we'll have these shoes. But we're being robbed. We've been robbed as a nation because as those people that are producing those goods have been robbed, now we as British people are being robbed simply because we haven't got the jobs anymore. We haven't got our own independent industries. Our exports amount to what? Most we don't make our own clothes and shoes. So, you know, supposing our relations suddenly cut off with China or sanctions were issued against Britain, as has been done to Venezuela. Sanctions were issued against Britain by America because we've elected Corbyn and he's decided to uphold people's human rights, as the Venezuelan government has done. Because let's face it, it's a democratically elected government that is now running Venezuela. It is a capitalist society, Okay, Venezuela is a capitalist society. The only thing is that it's included socialism in it. It's included socialism to the extent they're honouring and upholding their citizens' human rights and providing people with social housing and education and healthcare and a living wage. So because they're doing that, America's issued sanctions against them. But no sanctions against Saudi Arabia or Israel, which isn't upholding human rights of its own, or in the case of Israel, Palestinians' human rights. Apparently Palestinians, because the Palestinians can be systematically murdered, persecuted, incarcerated, maimed, bombed, robbed. Because apparently they're snakes breeding little snakes. That's the Israeli government. Now, personally, I don't support sanctions against nations because I know that in every nation, it's often actually today a minority that's really supporting the government, and that the majority of people do not agree with what their government is doing, or among the people that do, they've been heavily brainwashed by propaganda to the extent they're not really, well, they're divorced from the reality that they're living in. So I have noticed that, yeah, Amazon has been under particularly heavy attack. You know, out of all the global corporations that are making money out of slavery directly, nobody's focusing on them, but heavy attention and focus is on Amazon, you see. And I do believe that is precisely because they are addressing the situation of slavery. They are addressing the situation of paying workers a living wage. And so there is a collective attack against them. And I'm not saying in some senses the concerns people are expressing aren't warranted. Okay? But why particularly against Amazon and not the other corporations that are actually damaging our environment? Because it is outrageous, you know. And for example, in Britain, people are being forced to work for their job seekers allowance, which is unlawful. It is unlawful. That is slavery. That is slavery, forcing somebody to work for their job seekers allowance and calling it training. That is unlawful. Because, you see, human rights operate on the basic premise that everything that is born on this planet, every creature, including us, that is born on this planet, have a right to live, to life, to the bounty of this planet. So, you know, a mouse, for example, has a right, a universal right, to make itself a home and to go and gather food wherever it can and to reproduce and teach its young how to live and, you know, continue. There's no head mouse controlling all the resources and telling the mouse which mouse can eat and which mouse can't, according to which orders they're prepared to obey and where they can live and where they can or can't build a home. And actually, no, you can't build a home. You're going to have to rent this home off me. And in order to pay that rent, you're going to have to work for so-and-so. Basically, you're going to be a slave to orders of somebody. Now, if those orders are not actually providing people with a decent standard of living for their efforts of obeying orders and working for people, often producing things that really we don't even need and actually are contributing to the destruction of our planet. You know, we're talking about absolute insanity, and that is what we are living with right now, you know. And that is why Britain, the British workforce after World War II, established the welfare state in the first place, and we established social security in the first place, because people understood they had been robbed of their common lands that gave them a right to self-sustainability. Our cottage industries, we produced our own clothes and shoes, we grew our own food, we made our own metal implements and pots. We did it. We provided for ourselves. And we would do work, we would go and get an education and do work and train to work for other people for a wage. But nonetheless, if those jobs weren't forthcoming, we still have our rights to build our own homes. You know, the people of 1750 before, of 1700 before the Enclosure Acts began widespread operation in Britain, and the rise of industrialisation destroying our cottage industries. People would just build a home. People had a right to build homes on common lands. 80% of the UK population was rural. Now, you see, either you're going to provide a welfare system, or, sorry, these property things are going to have to go, aren't they? Either capitalism is going to work with socialism, as our left and right hands work together to keep our bodies needs, to sustain our physical needs and to work, okay? If capitalism is not going to incorporate socialism and provide a basic standard of living for people, regardless of whether they work or not, and let's face it, unemployment benefits are a very basic standard of living, but nonetheless they do uphold human rights. They ensure people have a home, that they have health care, education, food, and access, you know, a means to transport, you know, to travel on a bus somewhere. Presently, the present JSA isn't providing that. People are unable, really, to keep their homes going. They're unable to buy food and get transport. The level of benefit should not be so low that it actually prevents people from bettering themselves, from actually looking for work, from getting training, you see, from improving their lives, and actually inflicts a sense of depression and alienation on people, and prevents them from socialising, prevents them from finding further opportunities. And if a society, unless a society is prepared to provide jobs for people to do that will pay a living wage and guarantee their rights and their rights to a pension, to retire at a specific age, then yeah, you are going to have to provide people with a welfare system. You're going to have to provide them with a humane level of social security, because these people have a right to live, and this is their land. And you're saying, well, these people have a right to own this land. Do they? Do they really? Okay then. Well, if you've got a right to own that land, you do also need to take responsibility for the rights of the people that are living on this land, because it is a terrible and, again, a deeply disturbing situation in this world that, you know, 83 people owned a wealth of billions. What did they need all these trillions for? How did they accumulate this money? Was it not through exploitation, through crime, through denial of people's rights, through slavery, through oppression, through war, through economic warfare? As has been, the British people have been attacked by economic terrorism, and as a result, the official figures of that 120,000 are now dead. Never mind the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, who have been adversely affected to the extent that they're suffering deep a depression and breakdown in their marriages and loss of their homes, and even loss of the children in some cases, which again has been handed. I mean, what nation hands over childcare, child protection to corporate entities that are making profits out of it, making profits directly out of public funding? And as a result, how many children are being snatched every month from actually genuinely loving family homes on the grounds that the child might suffer a future emotional risk, and causing actual emotional damage to children in order to protect them from a future emotional risk? I mean, how crazy is that? This is what I mean. We're living in insanity, total insanity and total ignorance. And it does need individual people. You know, it is exactly this rise of the individual above all else that has allowed for this very dangerous imbalance that is not just an existential threat to our species, it's a threat to our entire planet, and we haven't got another one. This madness is running unchecked. And you know, even our own government, so-called democratic governments, civilized governments of so-called developed nations with highly sophisticated societies, can turn their backs on the democratically elected president of Venezuela simply because he's included a spot of socialism in his capitalist society in favour of corporate capitalists, the people who are supporting corporate capitalists, who want to deny millions of their citizens human rights, purely according to their right, apparently, to make a profit off these people and to oppress them. So what do these private individuals who own all this wealth through their corporations or shares in these corporations, what are they contributing to our world then? Why do they need all this money? What do they need it for? Apparently, at the moment, they've got an agenda, and, you know, to satisfy basically the declaration on the Georgia Guidestones to, what is it, reduce the human population by 6.5 billion. Seriously. As if, you know, life, an abundance of life, we'll just throw all that humanity away. We'll just throw it away. Never mind what this planet has sacrificed to produce that humanity in the first place. Never mind thinking to yourself, wow, we've got an abundance of people on the planet. Imagine what we could do collectively, how we could utilise that workforce, the skills, the creativity, and create a heaven on this earth and clean up all this filth, this madness, and invest in new technology that isn't going to damage our planet, that's going to be eco-friendly and give everybody nice lives, give everybody less working hours. You know, let's give everybody a living wage on a 3-day week. Let them invest in their local communities. Let's invest in some happiness and love and joy in life. But no, let's live in this universe and turn our planet into a bloody corporate hellhole. And look forward to a future of, you know, artificial wombs producing factory children. Because, you know, they've got that technology to do it, and don't think they bloody won't do it. Nothing's changed. Hitler wasn't, you know, isn't an antiquated psychology. That psychology is still in operation today, and we can see it operating exactly against the Palestinians, can't we? Who are reduced to living in a series of Israeli-controlled concentration camps. And apparently I'm being anti-Semitic to say that. So, you know, I give my praise to praise where it's due. Every little bit helps, and I value the little bits. I value the little that companies like Amazon is trying to do. And the more support, the more we can support those moves forward, then that will facilitate even more, you know. But instead, it seems to me that everybody in this world, whether it's a government, a private company, even a corporation or a business or an individual who is promoting human rights and the law, universal law, and a sense of fairness and balance, they are being heavily attacked. And that is saying something. So it is now down to the individual person in every society to reconnect with our care and conscience and to take responsibility, ask questions. You know, like I say, I've noticed a couple of things on Amazon that, you know, I ordered these things for a friend and it was, you know, I thought, oh yeah, they're cheap. Maybe, you know, somebody's getting rid of some old stock or something. But actually, when I thought about it today, and I thought, no, this just doesn't seem right. They are actually too cheap. Actually, things can be criminally cheap. And again, you know, referring back to Deborah, to the song of Deborah, that video, which I'll leave the link under this. Again, where does the complicity end? Where does the responsibility end? If people are knowingly buying things simply because they're cheap, without accepting the obvious fact that, well, how does one produce this? Because actually, even to produce, you know, let's say a glass bead that's part of this thing you're buying would actually cost more than the whole entire object that's full of glass beads. You see, like how is it even possible to produce this thing at such a low price? And never mind who has put these components together, and what are they being paid? And it does go back to the story of the Last Supper, which I've explained in By the Will of God, another video I'll leave under this link. That, look, some produce does amount to human flesh and blood, doesn't it? Is it all blessed by Jesus? Alright, yeah, we're all entitled to our basic daily bread, aren't we? And, you know, the odd glass of wine or what have you. Our food and drink, we have basic rights to those. We can't help how they're produced. If it means not eating those means we're going to starve. But what about all these little trinket products that are being created that really we don't need? But people are profiting from them. People are buying them cheap and actually selling them for a profit. And as I say, ridiculous amounts of profit. I mean, all right, if you buy something for £1 and you sell it for a couple of quid, you know, you're paying a bit of tax on that. It's a fair profit, isn't it? But it is when people are buying things for a couple of quid and selling them for 90, 100 quid that you start to ask questions. And you look at how much tax they're making, and then suddenly they're really wealthy enough to be influencing and buying our politicians, wealthy enough to be buying the kind of politicians who will issue serious sanctions against a country like Venezuela just because it's decided to include a bit of socialism in its capitalist society, as Britain did after the Second World War. But apparently all these British people who were intent on sovereignty and returning back to our culture, oh yeah, we can just ignore what the British people of World War II, who actually fought for this country, had implemented, can't we? We can let go of the health service, we can let go of the social housing, we can let go of social security, can't we? We can forget what the British working class people, the people who fought for this country, had established. I tell you, men like my granddad, they have been sold down the river. You know, literally their graves have been spat on, and it absolutely makes me sick. And as I say, we all need to take responsibility now. We do. We need to take responsibility for the corporate filth. Again, nobody's talking about Fukushima. That's still there, spewing its filth into the Pacific Ocean. Oh, that's Japan's responsibility. Is it really? Did Japan invent nuclear power? No. It's everybody's response. Every country has been buying the depleted uranium that those reactors produced and using them in their weapons, and then deploying them in countries like Iraq and causing birth defects and miscarriages and disability and death through leukemia and cancer. We have a collective responsibility now. So, you know, either do nothing and accept the rule of these monsters who are literally devouring the child of humanity. Okay? Leave it to them, or take responsibility, people, and speak out.